Alright everybody, what's going on? It's Alex once again with another episode of the EOT News Flash, and welcome to our Core Set 2020 Limited Set Review. Wizards dropped the entire set yesterday, so here we are, middle of the week, kicking things right off. Pre-release is not this weekend, but next weekend, and you can even do that at 7 o'clock for your FNM. Pretty cool, right? And of course, I want you to walk in as prepared as possible, so that's why I'm here to walk through all of these cards. Now, before we begin, if you've not seen one of these before, quick guide on the rating scale here. We are operating on a 4-point scale with 2 side categories. Your S's for sideboard cards and your B for build around me cards. 1s are the bottom of the barrel. Never play these. 2s are your more generic filler, the creatures that will always make your deck because that's just what's in these booster packs. 3s are going to be your more premium spells, premium removal, things of that nature, and your 4s are absolute bombs, the rares, mythics, and planeswalkers will pull you into a color and really set the direction for your deck. So, let's not waste any time here. Let's just jump right into the first card of the night. One at a time this time. That's over here. Something different this time. Kind of neat. We have Aerial Assault. This is a 2-white sorcery at common. Destroys a target tapped creature, and you gain 1 life for each creature you control with flying. Now, white is a very life gain focused color in this set. Lots of cards dictate you wanting to gain life. They also deal with the ones that have flying as well. So, blue-white flyers is going to be kind of the main focus of this deck, I would say. I'm less interested in the life gain aspect of this card than I am this just being straight up removal for just basically any creature that doesn't have vigilance. I give us a solid 2.5. You know, the life gain definitely bumps up a little bit for me, but any good removal in Limited is always going to be playable, so solid 2.5 for me. You're going to play this quite often and possibly even first pick this in a draft if the rest of the pack is relatively weak. Moving right along into a much more powerful card, we have Johnny, Strength of the Pride, 2 white legendary planeswalker Ajani, mythic rare, 5 starting loyalty, +1s to gain you life equal to the number of creatures you control plus the number of planeswalkers you control. Pretty sweet. -2 creates literally Ajani's Pride Mate, also pretty cool. And his 0, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting life total, exile Ajani, Strength of the Pride, and each artifact and creature your opponents control. So your magic number is 35 in most cases, or 55 for you EDH kids out there. This card is certainly powerful. I will give it that. The life gain, especially in a deck that wants to go wide, is pretty intense. Making literally, upwards of at least 2 Ajani's chosen is pretty powerful. Or Pride Mate is also pretty powerful as well. So this card is definitely strong, but it does have a heavy build around me component to really get the most value out of this. I do like that we're not really adhering to the usual card advantage removal ultimates that ends the game sort of templating for planeswalkers as we usually have. So I give Ajani a 3 here, but he's definitely more of a build around me as well. If you're in white and you have a heavy life gain component to your deck, you might be able to get there, and the ultimate is quite powerful if you can possibly get to that level of life, which I wouldn't shoot for, but wouldn't fault you if you did. Next up, we've got Ancestral Blade, one of our first colored artifacts in this set. 1-white artifact equipment, uncommon. As it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token and then attach Ancestral Blade to it. And the equipped creature gets +1/+1 and equips for 1. So this is pretty interesting. Normally, I'm not a big fan of equipment, and this one essentially has the living weapon mechanic attached to it. So you get a 2/2 for your 2 mana, which is a fine investment. However, is the bonus to equip this to another creature all that worth it? I'm going to say no, and so my usual de facto rating of just giving, equipment and limited a pretty underwhelming rating is going to hold true here. 1.5 for me. This just isn't an exciting card at all for me. Speaking of exciting cards, though, we've got Angel of Vitality next. 2-white Angel, uncommon, 2/2 flyer. If you would gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead, and she gets +2/+2 as long as you have 25 or more life. This is what I'm talking about. This is a good payoff for life gain because it helps, enhance the engine, obviously. And 3-mana 2/2s are always powerful, solid stats all the way around. I wouldn't really worry about trying to get to that +2/+2 ability on there. But if the game does go long and you do have a number of the life gain cards in the set, this can actually pull a lot of weight. Gave the Angel here a solid 2. Next up, we've got more Angel nonsense, an Angelic Gift. 1 and a white for an enchantment aura at common. Enchants a creature, draws you a card as it enters the battlefield, and gives a creature flying. Yeah, I'm not super impressed by this at all. If it gave it some sort of a static boost, like a +1/+1 or something, maybe that, but still super underwhelming. Drawing a card is the only thing that saves this. It's a solid 1.5 for me. I would be hard-pressed to play this. Next up, we've got the Apostle. Can I get this any more centered up? There we go. The Apostle of Purifying Light. 1 and a white creature, human cleric, uncommon 2/1 that has protection from black. Protection from colors is back in this core set. So really quickly, this creature can't be blocked, targeted, dealt damage, enchanted, or equipped by anything, in this case, black. So that will come up in some cases in your limited games. Not terribly often, but I believe there is only one card in each color that actually grants protection from another color. So there you go. Solid 2/1 body here, and you can pay 2 to exile a target card from graveyard. There are a number of graveyard shenanigans in this set which you can get up to, so that actually has some play to it. So I gave the Apostle here a solid 2, and if you do go against a black deck or anything that does have graveyard synergy built into it, it gets to be a little bit better than that, actually. Not a bad card at all. Next up is a card that makes me angry. And I'll explain why here in a minute. Battalion Foot Soldier is a 2 and a white creature human soldier at common 2/2 that enters the battlefield and allows you to search your library for any number of cards named Battalion Foot Soldier, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. Why not Squadron Hawk? Why isn't Squadron Hawk playable in Modern? Why isn't Caw-Blade playable in Modern? Because we don't have Stoneforge Mystic. I get it. But still, this makes me have hope that one day we might get Stoneforge Mystic back. I don't know why. It's completely unreasonable, but I dare to dream. So, anyway, this is certainly a good card here. The body is reasonable for the cost. By itself, it's pretty underwhelming. It's good for like scrapping for like that 24th playable. But I do think that if you've got 3 or more copies up towards, I would say, I wouldn't play any more than 5 of these things. Just don't go crazy with it. You know, and if you draw one late, you get to pick up the other ones out of your deck. This can be a pretty powerful effect to just refill your hand and have, you know, just plays it constantly makes. So I gave the Battalion Foot Soldier here a 1.75. You know, at 3 or more, then it goes up to a 2+, and then you have a very playable card here. But it does have that build around the element to it, so you do need a couple of these to actually get going with it. But still, once you do, it's a very powerful card. Next up, we've got the Bishop of Wings. 2 white for a human cleric, rare, 1/4. Whenever an angel enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. Whenever an angel you control dies, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So I had to go back through this set multiple times. There are not a lot of angels in this set. I believe there are 4, if I'm not mistaken. Some of them are common, which is fine. But this is definitely a big build around me. But if you do manage to have, there's only 3 angels in the set. Yeah, only 3 in the set. So the only real benefit this thing has is, you know, being a relatively large body that's somewhat hard to cast on curve at double white, but this will block a good number of things. And if you do have, you know, if I would say, it's a 1.75 for me. We got to say that up front. But if you do have a number of common angels, or even the uncommon or rare angel, this becomes rather playable. But I'm not going to go out of my way to just, you know, take a bunch of angels just because I opened this. So I'm not going to first pick this. If I can wheel it with some angels, sure, but still a pretty underwhelming card all around. Next up, we've got a card that I am shocked by. This is potentially scary stuff here. This is Brought Back. 2 white for an instant net rare. Choose up to 2 target permanents in your graveyard that are put in there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped. So when I first saw this, I was thinking, oh, just for creatures. But then I started thinking about the more broad implications, and all of a sudden things like fetch lands, planeswalkers, there's a lot of things this can bring back, which makes this a very, very powerful card here. But creatures, is where you're going to be mostly focusing on with limited perspectives here. So creatures are always dying in limited. So if you can have some perceivably bad blocks on your end, your opponent's thinking that, and then you just flash this out on their end step and bring those creatures back to have an alpha strike or something. Really powerful stuff here. So this is a solid 2 for me. It has a little bit of a build around me element to it, but it's still a very powerful card that can really blow your opponent out if timed correctly. And next up, we've got our first of the Cavalier Cycle. These are all Elemental Knights, one of each color. Cavalier of Dawn is 2 white for a 4/6 Mythic Rare Elemental Knight, has Vigilance. As it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token, and as it dies, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So there's a lot going on here. Obviously, you can target your own stuff. If you have a creature that's been pacified to, get that golem out of the deal. Taking out some of your opponent's problematic permanents to give them a 3/3 instead. Not a bad trade-off here at all. The only downside is that last ability. You've got to have playable enchantments and artifacts in your deck. Just being a 5-mana 4/6 that blows up a thing is not really going to cut it. So you maybe get a Pacifism back. Pacifism's in the set at common, so it's entirely possible you do have a couple of those in your deck and can take advantage of the dice trigger here. So it's a very powerful card here indeed. I give it a 2.75. It's just a little bit unwieldy, and all of that triple mana cost is a bit of a hurdle to jump through. But once you do, you're in pretty good shape. 2.75. Next up, we have Dawning Angel, 4 and a white for a 3/2 angel at common, flying, and as it enters battlefield, you gain 4 life. So here's your combo with the Bishop of Wings, essentially. This isn't a terribly exciting card. It's pretty much just bread and butter, if you ask me. The solid body, the stats are good, the mana cost is reasonable as well. This is a solid 2 for me. It's nothing exciting, but you'll be happy to have this in your deck, if you do go that flying angle. Next up, we've got Daybreak Chaplain. This is a card returning from, I believe, M15, possibly even Origins. 1 and a white human cleric at common, 1/3 with lifelink, so damage dealt by this creature also causes you to gain that much life, because it's on the card. This is one of the few common ways that you can just consistently gain life in this set, and it's not a very good one at that. I gave this a 1.5, but if you need a lot of lifelinkers to enable some other aspect of your deck, it's not terrible. It's going to block a majority of things, but it's not going to be exciting. If you have a deck that wants to go long and just needs to buffer its life total until it gets to the late game, yeah, by all means, go for it. But it's a pretty underwhelming card regardless. So like I said, 1.5 for me. Next up here, we have Devout Decree. 1 and a white for a sorcery at uncommon that exiles target creature or planeswalker, that's black or red, and then it scries you once. So you look at the top part of your library, put it back on top or on the bottom of your library. So it's cool to see this sort of like cycle of cards where it's considered to be a color hoser come back into the core set. So obviously this is a sideboard card. You can't just put this into any deck, but as soon as your opponent does present you with black or red creatures or planeswalkers, you can certainly bring this in, and it's quite powerful as well. So sideboard for the most part, but more often than not, you can bring this in and have it to be some good effect. Same with our next card here. We got Disenchant. 1 and a white instant common, destroy target artifact or enchantment. About as bread and butter as you can possibly get for removal in a core set. If they've got enchantments or artifacts you need to remove, obviously bring this in. There are not a lot worth blowing up, but if you got it, you need it, and you need it if you got it. So there you go. Sideboard. Moving right along. Love this card. Just like the flavor of this card it just makes me laugh. Eternal Isolation. 1 and a white sorcery, uncommon. Put target creature with power 4 or greater on the bottom of its owner's library. So I had to do some math. I hate when I have to do math for Magic outside of combat. But I had to go through and I had to count the setup. This hits about 20% of the creatures in the sets. So would I play a card that's only 20% aligned half the time? Probably not. So I would sideboard this one for that reason alone. But if you're drafting and you saw a lot of big beefy green creatures floating around, at that point this does become main deckable just because it is very dependent obviously on what your opponent's presenting you with. It's still playable, but you just have to have targets, obviously. So don't just go jamming this into your deck thinking it will have a target for it automatically. Definitely sideboard this one in, and then when you do, you're going to be happy you have it, and when you have sideboarded it in, I'd say it's going to be around a 1.5 just because of it's only going to hit, one or two creatures, but if that one or two creatures is going to kill you, there you go. Next up, we've got a card that I loved playing in Standard. I was a big fan of Fencing Ace in the Pants deck for Ravnica. Return to Ravnica was the block this originally was printed in at Common, no less, but hey, times change. Fencing Ace is a 1 and a white human soldier at uncommon 1/1 with double strike. Nice. It needs pants. That's the only problem with this card. You're effectively getting a 2 mana 2/1, which is plenty good, and there's enough X1s in this set that this will trade favorably at least a lot of the time, but it does need some really, some enhancements to make this thing better. There are a number of enchantments that do give it some power in white, so there's potential in Fencing Ace, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play this guy. He's a build around me, and at that, he's not a very good one either. 1.75 for me, almost playable, I think, almost playable in almost any deck. Almost. Speaking of enchantments, we have Gauntlets of Light. It's like I drew this up or something. 2 and a white for an enchantment aura at uncommon. Enchants a creature, gives it +0/+2, and assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So it's the old Arcades or Dorian the Siege Tower trick here. And the enchanted creature also has 2 and a white untap this creature. So pretty cool stuff here. And this goes on, basically any creature. It doesn't really matter if the creature already has inherently more toughness than it does power, because this will give it that ability on its own. I've never been a really big fan of enchantments like this. We've seen a majority of the removal in Limited be just spot removal or, bounce removal, which can just blow this out entirely. I still hold that to be true. It's gone down significantly in the last couple of sets where a card like this can potentially stick around, but I'm not going to be going on my way to play this. I still, a little bit prejudiced against cards like this. I'd rather just have another creature. So 1.5 for me. Next up, we've got Glaring Aggies. Aggies? Oh, wow. Let's not say Glaring Aggies. A single white gets an enchantment aura at common, enchants a creature, and when it enters battlefield, you tap target creature opponent controls, and the enchanted creature gets +1/+3, which is pretty good here. I do like a good tapper. It's not the blue effect where it taps it throughout their entire turn. So you do get at least one good shot when you do put this onto a creature. That being said, it's still not very powerful. It's a 1.5 for me. Again, I just want to have better creatures than pseudo removal, essentially. Next up, we've got God's Willing. A single white mana for an instant at uncommon gives target creature you control protection from a color of your choice. So again, it can't be targeted, blocked, dealt damage, enchanted, equipped by anything of that color, and you also get to scry 1. I do believe this was common again back in Theros. We get to see Elspeth here in all her glory. Maybe she's coming back. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so for God's Willing, I gave us a 1.5. Oh, no. Yeah. So I think this exists for one very good reason in this set. It's because murder exists in this set at common, no less. So you need a way to save your bigger creatures from it. I wish it was common for that very reason, but beggars can't be choosers. And I do always like a good way to blank a good removal spell. So if I do have like a more controlling deck that wants to play one big finisher and I need to blank one spell to get through the game, this is a great way to do it. Blank removal in general, get through a bad blocking situation, block, play this, have the combat go your way because you're able to block against their color now. There's a lot of flexibility to God's Willing here, which is why I gave it a 1.75, and I would say it's almost at a 2. Like, I would need to see kind of the tempo and the texture of the format, and it might be a little bit better than I'm giving it for, but I do have, I have a lot of respect for this card. It's very powerful in the right situations. Next up, we have got Griffon Protector. 3 and a white for a Griffon creature, common 2/3 flyer. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Griffon Protector gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. More creature fall! Yes! The baseline stats are more than fine. Like, this is a solid 2 right here. 4 mana flyers will always be playable limited because this will get through for a lot of damage, especially if you have creatures come into play. Instant speed creatures, for instance, maybe it has flash, or it's maybe an instant speed spell that makes some tokens. Who knows? So yeah, I really like Griffon Protector here. It's definitely, a good mid filler in your curve, but there are cards that will outclass us pretty quickly, but you'll get some good damage with this thing, no less. Moving right along to more Griffins, apparently. This set is full of Griffins. Griffon Sentinel is next. 2 and a white for a Griffin common, 1/3 flying with Vigilance. I don't know why you'd want to play this if you could just pay 1 more and get the Protector. I don't get this. That being said, it's a great target for Gauntlets of Light. That's a thing. But yeah, this card is pretty underwhelming, but having Vigilance is definitely a point in its favor. Being able to keep the ground locked down relatively well and keep beating through for some damage. I do give this thing a couple of points for that, but it's still a pretty underwhelming card. But you will play this if you're in a more flying focused deck, which obviously White wants you to be in. And next up, we've got the Hanged Executioner. 2 and a white for a spirit at rare, 1/1 flyer. As it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and then you can pay 3 and a white and exile it, and exile target creature. So this is pretty powerful here. Granted, it is 7 mana to exile a thing permanently. Has to be a creature, unfortunately. And at least it does leave a friend behind. So there is some power to this card. There is some play. Your opponent will have to play into this. It is an onboard trick, obviously. So you'll definitely want to have to make sure that you're going after the right card. Maybe they just don't play a creature that's obviously a trap. They want you to just get rid of it because they have their trump card left in their hand. So, be pragmatic about playing with this card, but I do think there is a lot of power for this thing, and it's a good body for 3 mana, especially when you have that much going forward as well. So this is a solid 2.5 for me. I like this card a lot. And next up, we've got Herald of the Sun, 4 white creature angel at uncommon, 4/4 flyer that allows you to pay 3 and a white to put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature with flying. So you just can't go ham on her, unfortunately. This thing is very powerful. This thing is insane. It really lets you take good advantage of all the other relatively underwhelming flyers in the set, like Griffon Sentinel, Griffon Protector. Make those cards from going from mediocre to pretty impressive, especially if you can untap with this multiple times. It is 6 mana, so it's a little bit pricey, but I do think that once you've got it on board and you're able to get it off a couple times, that's going to be a very impactful play and could go, the distance to making you win a game, Unlimited especially. This is a very, very powerful card here. Solid 2.5 for me. And next up, we've got Inspired Charge. 2 and 2 white for an instant at common. Gives creatures you control +2/+1 until the end of turn. I like that this isn't attacking creatures only, which sometimes these Anthem effects tend to be. That being said, I'm still not a big fan of cards like this because your opponent can just see it happening. You go to attacks, you have 4 mana open, and they're like, okay, I know what they've got. So they make their blocks as they need to make sure that nothing actually goes wrong for them. you do need a pretty good board size for this to be as effective as possible, of which you're typically going to get in a game of Limited, especially in a core set. Board states can get quite cumbersome in core set Limited, so this does have a lot of play to it, but it's still nothing that I'm really all that excited about. It's a terrible top deck as well, so it's a 1.5 for me. This might finish a couple games for you, but those will be few and far in between. Next up, we have Inspiring Captain, which I believe is being reprinted from Eldritch Moon, if I'm not mistaken. So cool to see him back. 3 and a white for a human knight, common 3/3. As it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Pseudo-repeatable Anthem effects, because you do have a couple of things that allow you to bounce creatures back to your hands in this set. So that's kind of some cool implications there. I do like, the body is quite solid. 4-mana 3/3s are hill giants and always playable and limited. And I do think that ability on there really does give it a little bit more flexibility. Not a bad card at all. It's a 1.75 for me. Not bad at all. And next up, we've got a plant for you modern players out there. Leyline of Sanctity. 2 and 2 white enchantment rare. If Layana of Sanctity is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield, and you have hexproof. And I went through the set, and I counted the number of cards that this actually stops. It's not many. It's not many at all, which means you should probably not play this in Limited. Yeah, it's that simple. This is obviously for Modern. All the ley lines, the black and the white one especially, are for Modern specifically, and it's cool to see some new ones for blue, for red and green. But it's a good value card, but it's not going to help you in a pre-release. So unfortunately, this one's a flat 0 in this case. Unlike this next card, which is completely ridiculous. 5 and a white gets you a Loxodon Life Chanter. I love the art on this guy. He is a rare 4/6 Elephant Cleric. There's a lot of clerics in white this set. It's kind of neat. As it enters the battlefield, you may have your life total become the toughness of creatures you control. So if the board has gotten a little out of control, and you've got, let's say, 24 toughness worth of creatures out on board, it's a number. It just goes right back up. This card is nuts. And you can pay 5 and a white to give it +X/+X, where X is your life total. This thing is absurd. This thing is absolutely absurd. I gave it a solid 3. If it was easy, if the life total thing was a little bit easier to sort of wrangle, having a big board state by turn 6 is certainly doable, but removal happens in Limited, so there might be some board states where this thing just comes down and says, nope, I'm good where it as is. But if you can protect it, if you can keep your life total high, if you can, let this be your attacker, smashing in for, however big your life total is by acting that ability is absolutely terrifying. The only downside is that this thing can just be blocked. So that being said, it's still a solid 3. This card is very, very cool. Yeah, I can see this going into a couple of EDH decks for myself. So anyway, that's all this review is about. Next up, we have Loyal Pegasus, who I believe has also been upgraded from Common. Weird. Single white on 2/1 gives you a Pegasus with flying that can't attack or block alone. Yeah. Card's kind of underwhelming. It does need some help to get going. You just can't play it and just go to town with it. But if you are in the flyer deck, I can definitely see this getting through 8 points of damage, especially if you have some of the early flyers in the set. Yeah, it's decent. It's not all that exciting, but it definitely, like I said, needs some help to get going. It's 1.75 for me. Definitely belongs in a very aggressive white deck. And next up, we've got one of my favorite cards from New Phyrexia. Actually, just in general, I love the Splicer cycle. This is Master Splicer. 3 and a white, uncommon, 1/1, human artificer. As it enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token, and golems you control get +1/+1. Now, I don't know how many golems are in this set. I didn't count. But yeah, I really do like Master Splicer here. It's 5 power for 4 mana. It's a great rate. And if it even gets killed, you have a body left behind. Always powerful. Solid 2.5 for me. Great uncommon for this set. Next up, we have Moment of Heroism. 1 and a white for an instant common, giving target creature +2/+2 and lifelink until the end of turn. This is a solid trick. It's a solid 2 for me. You know, life gain is always going to be important for white, especially in this set. It's definitely its theme. And so if you are in an aggressive deck that needs to just punch through a few more points of damage, use this as a pseudo removal spell, I can see it being serviceable. I give it a solid 2. It's not very exciting, but it does get the job done quite well. Next up, we've got another reprint, I believe, from Dark Ascension. Morland Inquisitor is back. 1 and a white human soldier common, 2/2, that you can pay 2 and a white and give it first strike until the end of turn. I like a bear with upside, and definitely Morland Inquisitor has that in at least, well, 1 spade and 2 X thingies. Yeah. Your opponent will have to play into this. You unfortunately have to hold up mana to get this ability to go, you know, in your favor, unfortunately. But I can see this being pretty effective if it goes into the late game and you do have the mana available. Solid 2. And next up, we've got Pacifism. 1 and a white enchantment aura common, enchants a creature, and it can no longer attack or block. I miss the old art with like the skeleton. I miss that, but this is fine, I guess. This is fine. Yeah, Pacifism is probably one of the most powerful common white removal spells you will ever see in limited Magic. This is a solid 3 for me. Removes a problematic attacker / blocker, lets you get through for less points of damage. Very, very powerful card here. Easily a first pick if you're rare and your uncommons, notice the pack is relatively underwhelming. You will play this in every white deck without fail. Next up, we've got another return with Planar Cleansing. 3 white for a sorcery at rare, destroys all non-land permanents. Wow. If you gotta destroy everything, at least do everything. You know, Planeswalkers, enchantments, it's gonna hit everything. This is no Wrath of God, that's only creatures. This does nuke the board in every sense of the word. It is a bit expensive, however, so you've got to be in a more controlling deck. Blue-white, white-black perhaps is where you might end up with a deck like this. I'm not super keen on playing board wipes in my limited decks unless I'm really playing towards a board state where it needs to be clean and I can untap, play a big threat, and protect it. I give it a 2 just because it does what it does so damn well, and sometimes you will need that effect. But you definitely do have to have the deck engineered around it to get the maximum effect out of this card. And here we are. What did I tell you guys? Instant speed token makers. Raise the Alarm is back from M15. 1 and a white instant common creates 2 1/1 soldier creature tokens. Yeah, this card was awesome back in the day with Jeskai Ascendancy. Stoke the Flames. Yeah, I miss those cards. Yeah, this is a really powerful effect here. You know, it's you can look at it as just 2 mana for a 2/2. It's a good surprise blocker. Like I said, there's a couple of decent X1s in this set that you can actually just, you know, blow out with this. And a lot of, you know, we've already seen things like the, the Loxodon Lifecrafter, which really cares about a massive board state. There's a great uncommon in green-white that really wants you to have a ton of board presence as well. So this is a good card to go along with that. So I gave Raise the Alarm a solid 2. And next up is a card that I've been wanting them to reprint forever. And now that they have, I'm like, why did you do it in a core set? I don't get it. This is Rule of Law. Enchantment uncommon. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Now, this has some sideboard implications in older formats. This might have some play to counter mono red decks right now that want to really power out their cards with Experimental Frenzy. So that might be the reason this exists here. But this is at best a build around me because you've really got to engineer your deck to make sure that you've got this in play and you can like counter your opponent's spell or remove your opponent's spell and just keep the board very, very controlled using this card. Takes a lot of work to get it done, but I imagine there are some decks that will take good advantage of this, but they won't be all that many. And next up, we've got a massive legendary creature, Farahs Blade. 4 white, 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 legendary creature angel, rare, 7/7. That you may pay white and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying, rather than pay the spell's mana cost. It also has flying and lifelink and gives other creatures you control with flying indestructible. That is a lot of hoops to jump through. Granted, there are quite a few number of flyers in this set at common, so I can see that alternate casting costs actually be a thing, but how much of a payoff you're getting for it, I'm not quite sure. You know, you have to really hope that those creatures that you do tap and then you play this, you hope they don't kill it because they're probably just going to alpha strike you. So I looked at this as a build around me, because you really don't want to pay 7 mana for this. So if you can get it out ahead of time with that ultimate mana cost, it's very, very powerful. But you've got to make sure that you don't get blown out. And the investment in it, you know, even at that point, like let's say you have a bunch of Griffon Sentinels, you know, that's, let's see, 3, 6, 9, that's 12 mana worth of creatures you've invested to tap and then play her. So return on investment, I'm not 100% sure where this is going to land. But she is quite powerful when she gets out on the board. Just make sure she survives. Next up, we've got Soul Mender. A single white mana gets you another human cleric at common, 1/1, that you can tap and gain 1 life. Yeah. You will never get this guy into combat unless it's like in the early turns when your opponent has nothing in play. But if you are in a heavy life gain dedicated deck, there might be some play to this, but then you're still playing Soul Mender, and that probably isn't good. So 1.25 for me. I need to see this deck in action before I believe this card's even worth the slot, but I'm just going to say no. And next up, we've got Squad Captain, a 4 and a white human soldier at common, 2/2 with vigilance, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature you control. This is nuts. So if you are in that go wide green-white, maybe green-black, or it's anything just base white, obviously, deck that wants to go wide, this thing can get absolutely massive. You know, I would say that your baseline, if you can get it to a 5/5, you're good on rate already. Anything beyond that is just icing. And having vigilance is so huge on a card like this that can just get absolutely massive. The only thing you have to worry about is get something, you know, that you control getting killed in response to you casting it. But this thing is very, very powerful. I gave the Squad Captain a 2 here. I really do like this card quite a bit as a good top end of the curve for your white deck, especially if you've missed out on a couple more powerful cards. Not a bad way to finish a game. And next up, we've got Starfield Mystic. 1 and a white for a human cleric, rare actually. It's a 2/2 that lets you cast your enchantment spells for 1 less, 1 generic mana less. And whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Starfield Mystic. So here's the problem. I looked at the enchantments. There's about 20 in the set. Less than a quarter of them are actually playable. So unfortunately, the Mystic here is just a bear. Yeah. It's unfortunate too that we get rares like this that are so specifically engineered for a certain kind of deck that really just don't do anything in limited, unfortunately. 1.5, just a bear, unfortunately. And next up, we've got Steadfast Century. 2 and a white for a human soldier, common, 3/2 with vigilance, and when it dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Now, that is a lot of text for a common, and that makes it quite powerful. I gave the Century here a 2.25 actually. You know, obviously having vigilance with a lower toughness to power ratio is a little bit suspect, but you do have the opportunities, you know, if you have like a combat trick, or, you know, maybe you can get to trade up with this thing and make one of the other creatures a little bit bigger as well. I do like this quite a bit, and it's a very powerful curve filler. Or, not powerful, but solid. And our last white card is Yoke Docks. Back yet again. A single white mana for a 0/4 common. Nope. 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 It sucks in a set review color on a card like this. It really does. But it's here. Gauntlets of Light, I guess. No, that's about it. Okay. So there you have it. A bit underwhelming, white is in this set, I think. Obviously, I will say that after getting to do the black set review for more of the Spark with Drew, getting to see just how critical he was of certain cards, it's kind of made me be a little bit more critical for cards as well. So if you're feeling like I'm giving out a lot of, like, close to ones, that's why. But I'm just being as, objective as possible, so that way when I do give a card a good rating, like a 2 or higher, you do know that I'm actually being, that I think that card is quite playable here. So just take that into mind. Of course, I'm not right about everything, so definitely let me know down in the comments whether or not you think I'm spot on about a card, if I'm just way off base, or have I just missed something completely obvious about Yoke Docks here. I haven't, but it's possible. So there we go. Thank you so much for watching tonight, guys. It's been a wild couple of weeks with as many videos as we had to do for set reviews, so I'm just like... So yeah, the rest of the set review will be going up in the next couple of days. I'm going to beat the pre-release this time. I know I will. So get ready to check out the blue, the black, the red, the green, the gold artifact and lands here in the next couple of days. And of course, I wish you the best of luck at your pre-release. Go out there, win it all, win a box, whatever it's going to be. Have a great time. And yeah, Core Set 2020. It's good to have him back. Have a good night, guys.